Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm a co-founder and CEO of NetBird. My name is Misha. I'm a software engineer by background, and this is, by the way, our first live webinar. And I'm so much better, I think, in coding than presenting. So, in case something goes wrong, you know why. Today, Maiken, who is the CTO and co-founder, will be joining the session too, but mostly it will be carried by me. So, hi, Maiken.
Hello, Misha. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining.
All right, guys. By the way, the session is recorded, so we will upload it later on YouTube. And I think we can get started. Um, yeah, the what is in our agenda today? First, for someone who is not familiar with NetBird, and I guess there are a few people who haven't tried NetBird yet, I will briefly explain what NetBird is and how it works. Then it will be also small live demo. Then I'll touch on um, network NetBird Networks, which allows you to access internal resources, and that's the core of the webinar. Um, and I'll show you how to do it step by step, live demo. Then it will be followed by a use case on how to enable high availability and zero trust access to internal resources. Lots of demos today, so it will be pretty interactive. And then we will end the session, this webinar, with a Q&A. Okay. Now, what is NetBird? NetBird is an open source zero trust network security platform, and it is made for remote access and connectivity, machine connectivity. At the core of NetBird lays a high performance peer to peer network. It is based on WireGuard. Every device in the NetBird network runs a NetBird agent that establishes a direct end-to-end encrypted tunnel. So you can see it at the bottom of this diagram. On the top of the diagram, there is a management service that is responsible for assigning IP addresses to these machines, DNS names, and network administrators. They can use this server to control access to internal resources or connections between the machines. And to do that, they can use groups and access control policy engine that is built in this control management layer. Of course, NetBird does much more than that, but that's a very high level overview of the architecture. And to show you real quick how it works, I'm going to jump into the demo. So I go log into NetBird. You can do the same. It's very easy to log in. You can use your identity provider. In my case, I use Microsoft, and it will ask me for MFA code. Let me see. Let me input it. And usually NetBird integrates with identity providers, and the MFA settings are propagated to NetBird, the MFA settings of identity provider. I already have a few machines two machines. One is my laptop, that's me, Misha at demonetbird.io, and a server, which is located in Ireland. It's an AWS EC2 instance. To add a machine to NetBird, you can just click on Add Peer. We support multiple platforms: Linux, Windows, Mac. It can also work on mobile phones, Docker containers, even serverless environments. So feel free to try NetBird. Every machine in the system, in the network, gets a private IP address. That's a NetBird IP address, and a domain name. So you can see The server has an IP. My laptop has an IP. You can also add these resources to groups. And in my case, there are 4 groups. I'm a part of IT administrators group, support and IT department group. The server is in a servers group. And by the way, these groups came from the integration with Azure, and you can enable synchronization. So every user that you want to be in the NetBird, or every group that you want to be in NetBird, is synchronized to NetBird, and then you can use it to establish access. Now I would like to just quickly show you the connection between these 2 machines. I want to ping the server from my laptop. And this won't work because there is another concept in NetBird, which is called access control policies, and there is no policy that allows the connection between my machine and the server, so I'll just quickly create it. And I'm an IT administrator. I will use ISMP protocol, and I will connect to the service group. So that's about it. I'll just name the policy admins to servers. And in a few seconds, you'll see that there is a connection. Here we go. Ping works. So I can enable, disable it, and I can organize my network with groups, add machines to different groups, and then build policies according to my requirements. Now, this is what I pretty much did, and that's the easiest way to connect machines in NetBird. You have few resources, like a database or server. You have a remote employee, like me with a MacBook, and I have a direct connection to the server. You can also connect database to the server and vice versa. So this is one way of establishing connections in NetBird, and that's a peer-to-peer network that I just showed you. But what to do if you have resources that cannot run NetBird agent, right? For example, an IoT device with a limited operating system, maybe a printer, or you have just so many resources that you just cannot run NetBird agent on. Or maybe you have a managed service like RDS on AWS, relational database service, that you cannot run NetBird on. So what to do in this case, when you have all these resources in your private network and you want your NetBird machines to connect to these resources. What to do then? You can use NetBird Networks. So that's the feature, the new feature that we just introduced. And the core idea of this feature is to have a peer that can run NetBird agent and is located in the private network that you want to connect to. And this peer we call a routing peer. And this peer will be responsible for routing traffic from the NetBird network to the private network that you are connecting to. It also supports high availability that I will cover later in this presentation. But let's get into demo or step-by-step guide. Okay. So in my situation, in my case, I'll just delete this network that I prepared before. I would like to connect to AWS network, a VPC in the cloud, and I want to connect to a database, to RDS instance. So the reason why I cannot run NetBird agent on this instance is obvious, because it's a managed service. And another point here, I don't want to expose this database to to public, so it has customer data, for instance, and I want to keep it private in a private network. And I also don't want to work or mess up the firewall, the security groups, and I can do this with NetBird Networks. So let's create a network. The network in NetBird is a logical representation of your physical network. So it can be VPC, it can be an office network, it can be data center network, any kind of network. After I added network, the system suggests to add a resource, and I'll follow the suggestion. And resource is something in the network that you can connect to. So it can be an individual machine with an IP address. So you can define resource as an IP address. Just input it this way. It can be a subnet as well. So it can be a whole network, subnet. Can be a resource, right? It can be a domain name, internal domain name like this one. Or it can be match domain, or sorry, it can be a wildcard domain, so that matches a bunch of resources. In my case, that is a RDS demo instance, and I will already have the instance ready on AWS, and I will just copy the endpoint, the private endpoint. That's a private endpoint, and I will take a note of the port. So I will input it right here, and then I can add this resource to a group that I can later use when defining access control. So I don't have a group yet. I create a new group, databases, and once I say add a resource, NetBird will create this group automatically. But before I proceed, I will show you that I cannot connect to this resource. So I'll just run a simple netcat command. Let's give it a verbose mode and a little timeout and word. So connection refused. So I cannot connect to this internal database. So I add a resource. Then the system asks me to add an access control policy. I want to make sure that my laptop connects to this database. And my laptop is in the IT administrators group. I want to connect to port 5432 TCP protocol. That's pretty much it. There is one-way access from IT administrators to databases. I can define posture checks. That's a zero trust part of the solution. I'll cover it later, but I'll just name it IT admins to databases. Okay, I created the policy, but remember I mentioned the routing peer in the middle. We are missing this part, so the system suggests us to add one, and I will pick one routing peer. There is a server, but it's not the one that we need, so I will just follow the instructions and add a new one. The system generates a setup key that I can use to enroll a new machine into the network. And I already have a prepared EC2 instance for that. The key part is that it has to reside in the same VPC as in the same network as your database, right? So that's the one. I'll connect to it through AWS and run the command. Okay, so shows it's connected. Now I can go back to NetBird, and here we go. Here we go. There is routing peer. I'll choose it, and done. So what we have so far, we have a network. It's cloud network, VPC, AWS in Ireland. We have a resource in this network. The resource is in the group databases. We have a policy that allows IT administrators to connect to the databases, and we can add more policies here. And we have a routing peer. So now let's see the connection works. So, let's wait a little bit. And maybe I'll disable this one. Oh yeah, so the connection is successful. What I can do, I can just now disable this connection, and it's refused again. I can enable it, and then it will be back again. The cool thing about NetBird is that you can create connections regardless of the location of your resources. So it can be data center connecting to cloud or cloud to cloud. So if you have, for instance, a database on AWS like here, and your workloads are on premise, you can easily do that without touching your security groups, and so on. So that's a very flexible solution. Yeah, so we have the connection. Now, what happens if this routing peer is down, right? So for whatever reason, it's an EC2 node, it can go down, right? So your connection will die, and therefore access, and you cannot allow this, right? So what to do in this case, and here comes the high availability feature. You simply can add another machine as a routing peer in the same network, and then when one machine is down, the other one will pick it up. So we can do the same process, the same setup process with another machine. I'll connect to another node with AWS Session Manager, and I already have NetBird installed there. So I'll just run apt command, go back to NetBird, and there is a routing peer number 2. I can add it to the network, and you see that the high availability access mode is enabled. And if you want to make it more reliable, you can add more machines. There is another way of ensuring highly available access, and that's using routing peer groups. So you can create a group, and you can assign this group to machines, and every machine that belongs to this group will become a router automatically. And this is very helpful when you have dynamic environments like Kubernetes. You can every service that runs on Kubernetes, or you can set up a daemon set for NetBird, and add this group to this daemon set, and then every machine that is part of this cluster will be a routing peer. Same applies to ECS clusters. Okay, I won't show it, but it's very easy to do. You can also use setup keys to automatically assign groups to the machines. Okay, so we are good. So we have access to the RDS instance. We have high availability, and now we want to ensure secure access to this resource. And it's already pretty good because we have granular access control. So we just allow administrators accessing the databases. So we don't give access to the whole network, just to a specific resource. And for people who really need this access, that's already good. So it's part of Zero Trust framework. But if we want to go further, and for instance, we want to evaluate the environment around the machine that initiates the access or connection, we can use posture checks. So let's say we want to limit access only to US users. So we have United States, and I can use a location check, which is that will check the location of the machine that initiates the connection and allow only US machines from the US to connect to the database. I can also specify what operating systems are allowed to connect. So we can block mobile devices. I can also say what processes have to run on the machines. For example, Windows Defender. That's something that can be useful. And if there is no process running, no Windows Defender, for instance, then no connection. Right. You can also say that only certain versions of NetBird are allowed. So I'll leave it to operating system and region. I will name it US only and desktop, and save changes. So now this policy has a posture check right here. You can add more posture checks. You can also create multiple posture checks and then share them between the policies. It's up to you. And since I'm in Germany, the connection shouldn't work, and it doesn't work. I'm in Berlin, but we allowed only US machines to connect to the database. Okay, I can remove it, save changes. So then the connection will be back. Right. So this way you can limit access to the network and to the resources. And once again, there are two ways of connecting resources. So you can build a peer-to-peer network. Same access policies can apply, same functionality, or you can use networks and allow this kind of remote network access, zero trust network access to these networks. So you can have multiple networks added here. Okay. On top of that, to ensure more security, you can use EDR integrations, and for instance, one with CrowdStrike. This allows you to allow access only to managed devices. Let's say you have big organization, you work at big organization, and you run CrowdStrike on you run CrowdStrike on the devices, and you want to allow only managed devices that run CrowdStrike agent to the network. So you can do that with NetBird. You can specify group that this configuration will apply to. So let's say IT administrators, maybe the whole IT department. And then NetBird will check if the CrowdStrike agent is running on the devices, and then make a decision to give access or not. On top of that, you can define a threshold, zero trust assessment score threshold. So if your device is below the threshold, for instance, there is no hard disk encryption, or there is no antivirus running, or operating system is outdated, device won't be allowed, right? And CrowdStrike calculates the score. They have their own scoring system, and we can just use this scoring system to set the threshold. So everything above 80 will connect, everything below will not connect. Right. Then pretty much everything I did right now is logged. and I updated the policy, created the setup key, the machine joined the network or user logged in to the network. This all logged and tracked. And we can also stream it to CIM systems like Datadog, or you can also stream it to AWS S3 for further analysis, like security, incidents response, or you can set up some alerts. So that's also part of our Zero Trust offering. And something that I already mentioned, you can enable multi-factor authentication, and you can synchronize your identity provider to NetBird. That really simplifies the access management. So all the users that you want to be in NetBird can be synchronized to NetBird, to the network, and you can use all these groups that are defined in your IDP to control access and using policies right here. Also, it helps a lot with onboarding and offboarding. If someone leaves the company, you remove this person from IDP and they're gone from NetBird too. So, and all the access is revoked. Same with onboarding. You can add people, you can add them to predefined groups, and all the policies to these groups. For instance, you added new administrator, IT administrator, all the access rules will apply to them. So they can start work. Right, so I think I covered everything. So we'll go back to the presentation and start our Q&A session, because we collected a few questions before the webinar. People were asking things related to networks, also unrelated. So we have a few questions that I will answer right now. And meanwhile, you can ask questions in the chat, and we will try to cover them. Also, Mike, I'm going to help me on that one. So one of the questions that was asked is, will legacy network routes be deprecated? No, we will keep them. So you can use the same functionality, and you saw it in here that it's available. And before, yes, we had a deprecated sign here, like a small icon. Now it's gone, so we will keep the network routes because you can create exit nodes with them. You can set up site-to-site connections, so we keep this functionality. And in addition to this question, is there a plan to implement the new networks feature on the client so they can be grouped together as in the dashboard? Yes, we will do that. And in the client application, you will see networks, and they will be grouped as in the dashboard. And this is coming Q2 early Q2 this year. Now, next. How scalable is NetBird? Could an organization with 30 to 40,000 users in 5 to 100 groups use it? Yes, if you organize your access control properly. If you create like 30, if you create a policy that connects 30,000 users or devices to 30,000, that's going to be challenging, right? But if you have small groups, that's okay.
Maybe I can add a bit to that. So the biggest challenge right now is the network map processing. And you can imagine that a full mesh of 30,000 peers connecting to each other will take a bit of time with the current version. So in the next few months, we will be working and focusing a lot on optimizing the network map generation to support this kind of case and have basically a limited network size.
Right, and we always suggest to enroll like one team, then the second team, starting with a few devices, maybe 100 devices or 200 devices, then add more to the network and see how the solution itself fits you. Okay, now what is the best way to handle port ranges for access policies? Yeah, this applies to peer-to-peer and to NetBird networks. You cannot specify port ranges at the moment, but we will also have this implemented in Q2. It is coming together with a stateful firewall. Right now, you just have to create separate policy for um, every resource. Sorry, and then for every device, pretty much for every port. Sorry. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, you can create a separate policy, or you can actually script uh, the port generation using I don't know, a bash script, for example. We have some community members sharing similar scripts, and then this is gonna be like applied in a single policy. Of course, this is you can imagine that this is gonna be a lot of effort for the management and the client to process, and that's why we're gonna be working on port ranges. There is initial support on the client as well for routes, but the API is not quite yet ready for that.
So not very convenient at the moment, but we will implement this feature very soon. So you can define port ranges when creating access policies. There was another question in relation to networks as well. Is self-hosting possible? Yes. I also guess it's coming from a user who never tried the NetBird. But we have two versions, cloud version and self-hosted version, open source version. Networks feature is available in both. So it's a basic functionality, core functionality of NetBird. So if you planning on self-hosted NetBird, you can use the NetBird's networks freely. There is a difference between the versions in relation to integrations. So for example, the IDP provider sync that I showed you is not available in the self-hosted version, but it's available in the cloud version. Same applies to CrowdStrike, Datadog integrations, and so it's mostly around integrations. But you can freely use our self-hosted version that is available on GitHub, and there is a script that can provision the whole server. All right, so these were the questions we wanted to cover, and let's look into the questions from the audience, from the live audience. Okay, there are a few.
So maybe I can read them.
Yeah.
So the first question we had was if we're gonna upload the video. So we are recording the session and we're gonna upload on YouTube later this week. And the second question was from Federico Vidalreta. Sorry for butchering your name. So he's asking if there is any plan to support ICMP rules in a single direction. So right now, the support that we have is a bidirection support, and yes, we just added um, stateful firewall support in our client. So basically, macOS and Windows and mobile devices were missing the support, and we just add that. And very soon, we're gonna be adding the support on the management as well, and the API level, and on the dashboard. So this is coming, like Misha said, early on Q2. We have another question uh, from Andy Robinson. So he was asking why he's not an why is not he's not able to select the light color for the dashboard. And I already answered that as well, but the main point is that we did not implement it yet, light color on the dashboard. Uh, we will be planning that, and we're gonna be sharing when we're gonna be implementing that. Is a bit more work than it seems, and for a small team as NetBird, this was a decision that we had to make, and we just supported dark mode.
And we are engineers. We like dark modes, so
um, let me see. Peter Koremans asked, In the web interface, it says an update is available for my iPhone peer. However, in the App Store, there is no update available, and that's true. And the case is because we are checking only the main version feed, and we do follow a different release cycle for the mobile devices because very often we don't have any update that is relevant or that changes anything on the mobile, and that's why you very often you see like, okay, my Android is outdated, the version is outdated, but the dashboard is complaining. We do plan to have the same release cycle, and this gonna come as well soon, but probably on Q2 as well. And if that don't come, we're gonna have different endpoints for mobile to query and for desktop clients to query. But this is basically the plan right now. Uh, did I miss another one before?
There is a Kubernetes question from Henry. Are there plans for tighter integration with Kubernetes, like load balancer ingress type support with NetBird? So, Mike, you can take it, but before that,
Yeah,
I actually can say something.
yeah,
We're gonna be in April in London. We have a booth there, KubeCon. So if you are in London, planning on visiting London, so see us there. And for that event, we will have something new um, for Kubernetes.
yeah. So actually, we are developing something already, and we are counting with a help of a community member that was very keen to introduce that, and he kind of joined the team for this task, and so basically we have a new repository called github.com network.io/. Kubernetes operator, and you're gonna see a PR open there. And what this initial version does, it will it will create a admission controller, and that's gonna allow you to tag your deployment, and we're gonna inject a sidecar from NetBird automatically, and we're also gonna have some custom label support for you to actually reference to these services using domains. In a second step, we're gonna have an ingress controller for NetBird as well, and this is gonna come right after this feature. So the development will continue, and we're gonna be working on that. And basically, gonna be like you're gonna be able to create a service, and they're gonna expose that as a network resource in the dashboard, and your peer is gonna have access to it. We might go full automated, or we might leave some room for administrators to say, okay, I want to share this with a particular user group, or so on, using Kubernetes resource. And last, the part three of this development will be a sort of a egress controller as well. And we have not yet designed that, but we're gonna be doing some user research to have a proper expectation for that feature, and design this properly as well.
There are actually quite a few questions unrelated to networks, so maybe we can answer some of them. And I think anyway, something that we won't answer now, we can answer separately. And I think it's a good idea maybe to set up an office like office hours so that we just talk and answer questions. But
Yeah.
something that is related to networks, Thomas was asking in the management dashboard, the networks UI or organization looks good, but the client organization is quite limited. That's true. And it doesn't show the networks; it show resources. So we have some work planned on that, and that was part of the first question that I addressed. Yes, we will do some improvements there, and feedback is very welcome. We can probably have a call, Thomas, and consider your suggestion. There is also another one regarding networks from Nicholas: is there a way to have a peer connect to a network without giving access to the peer that provides the network? Yes, and that's exactly how I did it in the demo. So my laptop doesn't have access to this routing peer, so I cannot even ping them, but they provide a tunnel or connection to the internal resource. But if you want to have a connection to these peers, you can set up a policy separately for this connection and call it, for instance, um, IT admins to routing peers, yeah, something like that. Peers. So that's how it is.
Yeah,
Port ranges already answered, right?
there is a question from Jacob. Uh, Jacob Eyes. So he asked specifically about the high availability of routing peers, if that works as a load balancing. And I answered there, but I would like to evolve a bit more. So in the way that we configure the clients is basically, and the high availability is like this. The clients receive a list of routing peers, and it tries to connect to all of them. And as the connection happens, it calculates based on latency which one will be the best one to route the traffic. And then the client, the routing client in this case, is the one that defines that. And it's very likely that the connection with the routing peers in this case will be balanced, because if you have multiple clients, they're gonna be connecting each one to different routing peers, and it will all depend on the connection status from individual connections. So that's how you can achieve the load balancing in this case.
All right. There were a few interesting questions. When there will be access control for SSH? I mean, it's already possible. You can create a policy with the port 22, right? But there is some room for improvement, Michael, right? So we first want to
Yeah.
improve the the whole feature SSH access, because now you have to use NetBird SSH command, but we want to support um, local agent. That's one, and then you can pretty much you'd be able to allow access by saying, okay, allow SSH access to this device.
Yeah, and we do have we do have some requests as well for the whole enable SSH server on a client, if that should actually enable automatically on the dash on the management. And there are a few things that need to be improved in that feature, and it gonna come soon. So it's part of the of some things that we're gonna put in a public roadmap for NetBird in the coming weeks.
There is a interesting question from Aditya. Are networks and network routes transparent for clients? As in, if clients are not updated, are they still using networks like they would network routes? Mike, what do you
Yeah.
think?
So actually we document the difference. There are a few differences between them, but in essence, in in the basic form, like if you are only routing network range, IP range, and regular DNS records, there should be no difference between those. And but if you need to route a wildcard domain, for example, if you wanna route the whole dev environment or that dev.company.com domain, then you should be using the new networks feature. Another point that we discussed it earlier is that network networks does not support yet exit node, and shouldn't be like used for network mode network sorry for exit nodes. And that's because the way that we are doing policies right now, and that can invalidate all the other routing there. And it's the same thing for site to site. So if you need site to site, if you need exit nodes, you stick to network routes for now. we're gonna have new support for networks and for these two use cases as well. But we're gonna share with the community once we have that planned.
Yeah, there was also a question from our friend Chinmay from the Roda. How's the routing peer working with the new networks? So you see in the in the UI here, I have an old version, and
Hmm.
it still worked, right? So that was the question.
And
That version didn't have network routes.
exactly. So it is very related to the how comparable the two features are, and they have that, and that's why they works because they are very comparable with each other, and you can set up IP range routes and IP range resources and regular DNS resources in the new networks concept, and you're just gonna work with the features or with the versions that support those.
And generally, we are against breaking changes. So I'm not sure if we had. Well, I think we had one or two in the past, but we tend to support previous versions, and that's our idea to to ensure that the older versions work as well. Okay, guys, I think um, there are a few more incoming questions, and they are not related to network networks. I I think I'll answer that one with ISO certification, and then we can wrap it up. And later we can answer all of these questions in our Slack, the ones that we missed today. Recording will be available also later next week. ISO certification it's in progress. We partnered with provider Vanta, maybe you heard of it, and that's it's going to be done. Should be Q2, Michael, right?
Yeah, I think that will be around Q3 actually. So we need some time to adjust the whole documentation and the policies, and the latest uh, beginning of Q3.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining and for asking questions. I hope you had a good time, and we will plan another session in a month or so. And if you have ideas, what kind of session you would like to see about what feature, please reach out to us, and we'll do it. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.